Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, where we interview location-independent entrepreneurs that travel the world like a boss by being their own boss. Here's your host, Johnny FD.
Hola, and welcome to episode 234 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I am here in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Tonight's guest is Rainier. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going, Johnny? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, doing fantastic. And first off, I want to say lo siento and sorry to everyone for not having an episode come out for almost a month. I didn't realize how long it's been because I've just been so swamped with the Invest Like a Boss Summit, then the Nomad Summit, and then just hanging out here in Playa. So I was like, hey, Rainier, we got to record a podcast tonight. And he's like, yeah, I'll be right over.
Yep, sounds good. I was like, we had a long weekend. I had a couple sniffles going up. It's like, all right, I got to come here and do it, make it happen. So thanks again.
Yeah, I love it. So you were actually at both events. That was actually perfect.
The Invest Like a Boss and the Nomad Summit. Yeah, it worked out. It was cool. I know you were planning to make it in Las Vegas initially. And so I probably would have made it, flew out there for a day, but it worked out being kind of in my backyard in LA. And so a couple weeks later, we're out here in Playa doing this interview. So it worked out. Yeah,
that's super cool. And so this episode, I kind of want to recap on both events, kind of like takeaways from it, but also the fun stuff about what Cancun is like, what Playa del Carmen is like, and also now we've been in like Tulum. So I think it's going to be kind of a fun episode that's a mix between a recap, but also like a travel, like a travel episode.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kind of just generalizing the Invest Like a Boss Summit. That was really cool. There was some heavy hitters in attendance that were speakers, attendees, a lot of great nuggets of information for anyone looking at those type of various types of assets. And then kind of turning it around on the Travel Like a Boss Summit, it was cool kind of getting to see a lot of people that I saw a year ago from the Vegas Nomad Summit catching up and then going more geared towards the traveling thing. So I wouldn't say there's that much crossover from a lot of people that I saw from the Nomad Summit at the Travel Like a Boss one, but it was really cool to see kind of both worlds.
Yeah, and just so people aren't confused, the Travel Like a Boss event is the Nomad Summit. I think just a lot of people come to it because of the podcast. So some people refer to it as the Travel Like a Boss Summit, but it's just the Nomad Summit.
Cool.
All right. So actually, quick background on you. Like where you from? What do you do?
So I actually was born in Muscat, Oman. My parents are Filipino, so I'm blood Filipino.
Nice.
But I was born in Oman when my parents... Mabuti. So my parents were working overseas. They had me there. And then when I was 4 years old, we trekked over here into the U.S. And I'm a first generation immigrant. And I guess I can call Salinas, California, my hometown. That's where I spent the most. Yeah.
You know what's funny is I dated a Filipino girl from Salinas.
That's awesome. It's a good mix of people, pretty diverse, and a lot of my close friends out there, taught me some Spanish, cooked up some good Mexican food, and so it's cool to experience the same culture down here.
So for people who have no idea where Salinas is, it's kind of like a few hours south of San Francisco, like near Gilroy, is it?
Yeah, exactly, just south of Gilroy, maybe 20 minutes south of there.
Okay, so just like 3 hours south of San Francisco?
Yeah, about 2-3 hours south of San Francisco and about 20 minutes from Monterey. I typically tell people, hey, I'm from Monterey or San Jose or San Francisco, just to kind of generalize it.
Yeah. I think even people that grew up in San Francisco have no idea where it is. And people in LA is like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly. Even when I was in Southern California, like a lot of people didn't know where Salinas was. So I would just say Monterey or San Jose.
Yeah, makes sense. And what is your job?
So I am a commercial real estate broker. I help buyers and sellers transact single tenant investment properties in the U.S. Kind of in layman's terms, it's kind of like selling bonds that just happen to be backed by investment real estate.
Okay, that's cool. Actually, so what's funny for you guys who are listening is my cousin Jacob is sitting on the couch. He came to visit. Jacob, you want to come to say hi real quick? He's actually a residential real estate agent based in Orange County, LA, Brea.
Hey, hi, how are you doing, guys?
So he just came out. He was at the Invest Like a Boss Summit, and he just came out to Playa just to hang out and scuba dive. So he just happens to be here right now. Yeah. So you actually went diving for your first time the other day, right?
Yeah. On Saturday, I was at the Underwater Museum in Cancun. And so that was an experience. That was like seeing a whole new world for the first time. It was almost like traveling outside of the US for the first time, honestly. There's like so much wildlife and it's so calming and so much nature, so much to see.
So you mean underwater or being in Cancun?
Or underwater. Cancun, I would say it's a really good time, but underwater, it's super calm and mellow, and it's almost like a meditative state, I guess you can say.
Do you think, when was the first time you thought about scuba diving?
I actually really wanted to go in Chiang Mai with the group after the Nomad Summit, and I had to fly back home, and I was really sad about it. And I was like, you know what? I need to do it when I come out here for the next Nomad Summit. I couldn't go with the rest of the group because it was midweek, but I ended up going over the weekend, and it was a good time. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So one thing that we've been really trying hard to do, but we're really going to promise to do now, is just to give people more of an idea of the after events after the Nomad Summit. We tell people hey, stay for 1 or 2 weeks after because we're going to do stuff. But it's really hard for us to tell people exactly what we're going to do on which days, especially when we had the Nomad Summit somewhere new like Cancun, which none of us have been to. So, the most I'm able to do is come 2 weeks early, scope the place out, find the cool stuff. But then even then, it's kind of hard to set exact dates because things like scuba diving, we need exact head counts. And a lot of people don't want to commit that early, or they're not really sure. They kind of wait until they're here, and then they're hanging out with people. They're yeah, let's do it. So part of it is it's hard to plan these things until a few days before anyways. So we what we've been doing is telling people hey, just we're gonna go to Playa del Carmen after for this week. This is what we're gonna do. And I think this time we had loose days. We're okay, we're going to go diving on Thursday. We're going to do, Chichen Itza, cenotes on Sunday. So that kind of worked out. But next year, we definitely want to make it way more planned in advance and actually probably just have a way for people to book online and say, we have 30 spots. If they're taken, sorry, that's it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny because for digital nomads, it's almost like herding cats because everyone plans everything so last minute. So even if you have all of these different plans, it's really hard to kind of pin everyone down to certain dates. But at the end of the day, there's so much people that are here for the events, whether they're here for the Nomad Summit or they're just part of this local community. We usually round up a good amount of people to go.
Yeah, it was dope. On the boat that we went on to go to Cozumel on the 2 days after the summit, we had I think 40 people on the boat, and everybody was either diving or snorkeling. It was a lot of people's first time as well, and that was dope.
Yeah, that looked awesome.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of been a kind of weird overlap of my old job of being a dive master and now really just being a hobby. Within one of the traditions of the Nomad Summit is to find a place to go scuba diving afterwards just for fun, just because it's something cool to introduce people to, and also something fun for travelers to do.
Yeah, it's cool. I love that part of it being included to kind of go to the summit, go scuba diving. And it's almost like they go hand in hand because you're doing the travel thing and you're discovering new places and you're really opening your eyes to what's out there that you're not really used to. So it's good. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if I can promise this every single trip, forever. Because especially in Chiang Mai, some people might be thinking there's no ocean there. So what we all did was we all hopped on the same flight from Chiang Mai down to Koh Lanta. I think there was 20 something of us, and then we all went diving down there. So I don't know if I'm going to join the trip this time, but I'll definitely organize something for people to go diving together if they want. But we're definitely going to do some trips in Chiang Mai together.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that I'm taking back home is to really get certified before the next summit because, it's a really good time. Cancun is a hot spot for diving and the cenotes. So I'm sure, all the rest of the Nomad Summits are going to be pretty close to other hot dive spots.
Yeah, we'll try to make that happen. So I actually I actually didn't know what a cenote was until I got here. Did you know what it was? Have you heard of it?
I heard of it because I was Googling things to do out here and then I read up on it, but it's not in Salinas or anything, someone was hey, you got to go to cenotes. I looked it up after researching it.
Are there cenotes in other countries?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Yeah, because I've never heard of it. I've traveled a lot of places, right? All around Asia, all around Europe, into South Africa. I've never seen or even heard of a cenote until I got here.
Yeah, they're extremely beautiful. clear water. You're swimming with a bunch of different fish, turtles. There's like underground like tunnels that you could probably dive in between and through. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of them here in Mexico.
I've heard there's 5,000 of them in
Oh
Mexico.
my gosh. Yeah.
So, okay, let's explain it. Like, what is a cenote for people that don't know?
So from my understanding, it's an underwater type of thing that was created back in like, I don't know if it was like the dinosaur age or what exactly. I need to research on it, to be honest. Do you have an idea?
I don't know how old it is, but they're definitely that old. They're like dinosaur age. And they're basically like an underground, is it a spring or something that like floods with the water, but then there's like a cavern so you can go in. So they're all different, but at least the ones that I've been to, it's like back in the day, in the Mayan days, like thousands of years ago, they would just throw people down there as like human sacrifice.
Oh, yeah.
Or to like kill people.
Yeah, I think when I was reading a little bit about Chichen Itza before our trip over there, I think the cenote that we saw, we didn't get to swim in there, but I think that was one of the places where people would be sacrificed. They would get killed and then thrown down in the cenote.
Yeah, because think about it. Like now there's like staircases that people build or ladders. Back then, if you got thrown down there, there's no way up.
Yeah.
So it was basically just a natural pit where they would throw you down and then you either get hit on the rocks or you hit the water, but you can't get back up and you basically just die there.
Yeah, I can't imagine being thrown down there and just, being kind of alive for a few more days. That's insane.
Yeah, and a lot of them have no natural light down there, so it's just pitch black. So it sounds so scary, and it was. But now that we have modern technology, the ones that didn't have natural light, they use electricity to light them up. And then all of them, they built like staircases or roads down there, or even or ladders, so that you can get in and out easily. So now they become these beautiful places with crystal clear water, and like you're like surrounded by like a cavern. Basically, you're like inside the rock. And the ones that I've been to, the one that we went to on Chichen Itza, that was beautiful because it was all rock surrounding it. It's like a crater, but then you can see the sky. So the sun comes down, and the water was so clean and so clear. And there's a little ledge where you can go and just like cliff jump off of it. Yeah,
I think there was almost like a little miniature waterfall with like the sun coming down, water kind of dripping down. It was cool. Like you would think it's like almost man-made, but it's all a natural wonder. It's amazing.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think man can make something that beautiful. Like, it was perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I had like jungle vines growing down it. It's so nice. If you guys want to see what it looks like, there's actually a video of us jumping off that cliff, and actually of us in Chichen Itza, which we'll talk about in a second. If you go on YouTube, look for Johnny FD and look for the 3 must-do things while you're in Playa del Carmen. It's in that video.
Cool.
So let's talk about Chichen Itza. What is that?
So Chichen Itza was, from my understanding, one of the Mayan capitals of this region. So it was full of commerce. It was bustling with a lot of people. The architecture and some of the foundations that they had were ahead of their time. And so it was really cool to just see something that was that old with, you kind of get that feeling when you're at that one sacrificial cenote of like, wow, there's a lot of history behind here and a lot of different things, good and bad. But at the end of the day, these were humans just like us, walking around and kind of believing different things with different belief systems. And it was really cool to be able to see something built back then that's still around. Yeah,
it's crazy that we always think about the pyramids in Egypt, but there's pyramids here in Mexico. And they were all built around the same time, which is pretty crazy. There was no email back then. There's no WhatsApping like, hey, you building that pyramid? And they're all kind of similar.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy how all these different civilizations that had no contact with each other built pyramids at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing too, our tour guide was explaining, some of the pyramids line up directly matching the solar system. And whenever certain times of the season come, the light hits perfectly through the top of the pyramid where you can see it, on a very exact angle. Do you remember kind of what he was saying?
Yeah. So the main Chichen Itza building, the main pyramid, first off, it's built with exactly 360 steps, which is the Mayan calendar. So instead of having 365 days, it has 360. And then there was like the 4 sides of it where the sun would shine through. And it was like, I think during the solstice or during like very like specific like astrological times, it would just kind of all line up perfectly. So people would first off know like when certain big events for them were, but also it's just like they were really into like astrology and the sun gods, and it's crazy because they would, you know, kill people, sacrifice people based on these things. And there was a movie called Apocalypto directed by Mel Gibson that it's not, you know, completely historically accurate because it's not like a documentary, but it shows kind of a lot of like what life was like back then and the sacrifices that they would do to try to appease the gods for the crops coming back. And I remember there was a scene in there where, actually, first, have you seen the movie Apocalypto?
I have not, and that's on my bucket list now.
Dude, it is so good. It is crazy good. Unfortunately, it's super hard to find now. It's not on Netflix. I don't think it's on Amazon. Like, you just have to like search for it because I think Mel Gibson got shunned by the Jewish community.
Oh wow!
And all the Hollywood, like everyone controlling Hollywood is Jewish, so they're like, "Oh, let's get rid of this movie." But it was a good movie. I mean, he's a genius in his own rights. Like Braveheart was amazing. Apocalypto was amazing. What else did he direct? Or what else was he in? There's
a lot of good ones. A lot of controversial ones, but at the end of the day, a lot of good ones.
Yeah, he's like the Kanye West of movies.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect way to put it.
He said some crazy things, but at the end of the day, he's like he's an artist, right? So
yeah, exactly.
They're all a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, Apocalypto, there was a scene in it where I don't know what they're called, like the leaders, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. The leaders of the tribe. They're on top of the pyramid, sacrificing people. Or telling people like thumbs up, thumbs down, like sacrifice more. And then the solstice came. So the sun got covered up and the sky turned black. And leading up to this for like months or years, there was like droughts, the crops were failing. And that's why they started, like sacrificing. And these leaders would tell their people like, we've spoken to the gods and they're angry at us. This is why we need to sacrifice people. But if we appease them, they'll give us another chance. And as soon as the solstice came, there was a very tiny split second in the movie where they all looked at each other like they knew what was happening, but none of the villagers knew astrology. So these guys knew it was coming. They planned it. They planned to be up there. They planned to be sacrificing people that day. Mm-hmm. And then they made this big speech saying like, gods, we're so sorry. Like, please, bring the sun back. Everyone's like freaking out, right? Because there's no sun. Imagine that. Like imagine being a villager, not having any idea what a summer solstice was, and the sky turns black for a minute. You think you're going to die. You think it's the end of the world. You think, without the sun, you freeze to death. There's no crops. And they were saying like, we've been sacrificing these people for you. Please bring us back the sun. I'm asking you. And the sun comes back. And they're like, thanks so much. So these guys got so much power from that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if the ancient Mayans believed in, I guess, is it astronomy? Or I actually don't know what the term is, but
I'm not sure to be exact either.
But like the stars, these like astrology. No, astrology. It would be astrology. It wouldn't be astronomy. Astrology, or like the sun gods and things like that. And they build all these crazy things to really try to appease them. Mm-hmm. Or if this was kind of a ploy by really kind of the rich and powerful to gain and keep more power.
Wow, that's actually a pretty good. Yeah, it makes sense. Either way, it makes sense.
Yeah. So it's amazing to see it because like you're there and you're just like, wow, this is where all this happened, and it's just like a powerful feeling.
Yeah, exactly. And the cool thing too is I think when the Spaniards came, they really burned everything, most things there. So what we're seeing today is what's left of it. So imagine when it was 100% what it was back then.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And Chichen Itza, I think a big part of it is rebuilt. But I liked seeing the other side where they never finished rebuilding it because you can really see what it was like.
Yeah, that was cool. On the back side of the pyramid, it's like only half renovated, while the front side where everyone takes their pictures is fully renovated.
Yeah, but I hope they kind of just keep it like not fully renovated because it looks more authentic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So one really cool thing about that Chichen Itza trip was we were able to do it in a private group with just people from Nomad Summit. I think we invited along like one or two other Nomad friends. But it was just us. It was like 30 of us. and we had an entire bus that holds like 45 people.
Yeah, it felt like a field trip with, half of the bus empty. We had our own private driver. We were kind of making pit stops along the way. It was really cool. It was, even though it took maybe an hour or so to get there, it was another bonding experience to really chat with other people from the Nomad Summit.
Yeah, and that was like a big part of it is it would have been easier for us just to go on a public tour. Actually, would have been a little bit cheaper too. Mm-hmm. Would have been like $10 cheaper and way easier to organize. If I was like, all right, guys, just sign up for this day.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't have that same feeling of like bonding, networking, just knowing we're all there kind of for the same reasons. And another big benefit of it was we didn't have to pick up random people. Like normally that bus drives around for like an hour picking people up at the hotels, different stops. And they actually would normally drive to Tulum, which is an hour away, to stop by their office for some stupid reason or pick up more people and then go. Mm-hmm. So it ends up being a 3.5 or 4 hour, actually like a 4-hour trip there.
Yeah.
But because all of us met at the Marley coffee shop next to Selena, and we all just got in at the same time, we went straight there and we were able to take the tow road and we shaved off another hour from that. I think we each chipped in another like $2 for that. It was well worth it.
And then we got in, I think, right around the opening hour, so it wasn't too packed.
Yeah, so it wasn't too hot yet, and there wasn't that many people yet, which is
exactly
great. And all the normal bus tours, what they do is I think they do like that one city, Valladolid. I can't pronounce it. Valladolid first, and then they do the cenote, then they have lunch, and then they go to Chichen Itza in the afternoon, where it's super hot and everybody arrives at the same time. And by us having our own private tour, we were able to do it backwards. We said, you know what? Let's go straight to Chichen Itza. Let's get that out of the way. While we're so dry, number one, like I wouldn't even want to go there after I've been swimming the cenote.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then like you're sitting on the bus all wet and everything. Mm-hmm. Go there before it gets too hot, before there's too many tourists, and then after you're out in the sun for 2 hours at Chichen Itza, then go to cenote and cool off. So that was perfect.
Yeah, it was a good combo.
Yeah, and then you're hungry, so then you go eat.
Yeah.
And then you want to walk around, so then we go to Valladolid and just walk around there.
Yeah, get some ice cream, get some drinks, kind of cool off a little bit before the ride home.
What'd you think of that city?
It was cool. It was a nice little quaint kind of hidden town. There was a church, I think, built in the 1500s. There were some festivities going on in the public park. I got to try some corn ice cream with a couple buddies from the summit.
Oh, yeah?
And it was cool. It was actually pretty good. It kind of beats the Gilroy garlic ice cream that I tried back at home, but corn ice cream down here is pretty good, surprisingly.
So that city, the one I can pronounce,
Valladolid,
was actually mentioned in episode 231 of the podcast when we talked about kind of under-touristed places that are worth exploring. And I can see why Nate liked it so much. It's a really cool, quaint city. It actually looks really similar to places in Spain or in Portugal that normally I would go to.
Yeah, I think the architecture was really cool, really awesome. And it's one of those places that are kind of off the grid until you kind of hear about it once you're in Cancun or in Playa.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so cool about having kind of a loose travel schedule and coming here, going somewhere and saying, I'm just going to stay for a month afterwards. I'm going to get Airbnb and just chill. Is there so many cool places that are like not that well known once you get somewhere? Because once you get somewhere, then you're not just competing with everyone who's taking package tours or Googling stuff online, like what to do. Because all those people will do all those things the first couple of days, maybe the first week. But once you're here for like the second, third, fourth week, that's when you're like, okay, what else? Like, what do the locals do? Like, what are the really cool, slightly out of the way places?
Exactly. A lot of locals will say, hey, go to Valladolid, check out Bacalar. There's all of these different places that the locals like to do on their free time. So kind of get some of those recommendations as well on top of your Google recommendations. Yeah.
And actually Chiang Mai is a good example. Like if you're a tourist and you go to Thailand, you're probably just go to Bangkok, Phuket, maybe Koh Phi Phi, maybe like Pattaya or like, kind of the crappiest places. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if you go to the Nomad Summit and you're like, okay, I'm going to arrive early and stay a month after, I guarantee you're going to find all these cool things. People want to tell you about places like Pai, mm-hmm. like this little hippie town a few hours away.
Yeah.
You sound like you've been there, about it.
I was there for the first time a few months ago. I actually got my tattoo there a few months ago. And so, it wasn't even on my radar. And once I got there, it's exactly what you said, like a hippie town kind of off the beaten path and its own little community where you get quote unquote stuck in the pie hole or lost in the pie hole. And you kind of, instead of, you're planning to go there for a day or two, you end up going there for like a week or more.
Yeah. And it's like, that's exactly what I'm talking about is those are things that you may kind of read about online, but it's really, most people skip it. Either they ran out of time or they didn't know about it and they have to leave. But if you work online or if you're, location dependent, I think this is the big blessing we have is not only can we go places at the off season, but we can also stay and really explore.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the places that you'll see on like a tour guided map or kind of top 5 things to do. The cool thing is if you stay 2, 3, 4 weeks out, you'll really get to know what the locals are doing and kind of the hidden gems. Just like in your backyard in California, you probably know a couple hidden spots that you'd show some people visiting the area.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like restaurants.
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of coming during the non-high season, we came during the perfect time. So if we had come a few months earlier, during the summer, like June, July, August, it's rainy season and it's super hot. 100-degree hot. And then if we came next month, November, December, it's high season. So it's super touristy. And the prices go up double. So the fact that we came in October and we had the Nomad Summit in October, it was perfect. The weather was great. Where on random days, it'll rain for an hour or two, but the rest of the day would be sunny, but not too hot. And we had a lot of places ourselves. A lot of places were just empty. The entire Selena, Cancun hotel zone was really just us.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I mean, a lot of the activities too, they're not going to be as packed as the high season. So you really get to take your time without being rushed at some of these historical places in cenotes. So it's really cool.
Yeah. And you're not uncomfortably crowded,
Mm-hmm.
And what was the other cool thing about it is the locals really appreciated us being there.
Mm-hmm.
I had a ton of random restaurant owners, bar owners, or even just employees come up and say, hey, thanks for bringing all these people here because this is our slow season. And normally it's we have no food on the table. They won't even I think even one of the security guards was hey, thanks, because they called me in today because we had a big group. And if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't have any work this week.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's another reason why I really like going places in the slow, kind of not the slow season, but the shoulder season.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to go somewhere when the weather is terrible, right? Because I still want to enjoy good weather.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I like going to places when it's not a major holiday or a school break, but right before the high seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in Thailand, the best time to go to most places, especially Chiang Mai, is November, where November, beginning of December, up to December 15th, because from December 15th through through January, that's when people have school break. That's when Christmas is. That's when New Year's Eve is. So people are going to go anyways. It's going to be packed and expensive. But if you go December 1st or even November, the weather's still amazing. Everything's open. Everything's there. But everything's kind of just ramping up. And things are half the price. People are still are super happy to see you. And it's just a beautiful time.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And Santorini, Greece was actually another place too, where I've heard if you go in July or August, or maybe September, during the whatever the high season is, people say it sucks. You can't walk anywhere. Everything is so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went in April, I was this place is great. I was walking around, I had so much room to myself. It was nothing was crowded, and the weather was fine. It wasn't super hot, but it was just it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So I really think that this lifestyle that we lead, or a lot of people who listen to this are aiming to lead, has so many extra benefits when it comes to freedom of time and freedom of location to work that it's the ultimate travel hack. We can go to the same places that other people go on vacation, but we can stay 1 or 2 months instead of 3 or 4 days. And we can go during the shoulder seasons where things are cheaper, people are friendlier, less crowded, and it's just life is better.
Yeah, it makes the most sense. Like you said, my favorite thing is like everything is much cheaper. And when you compare it to, let's say, California costs, my living expenses are like half or less than that when I'm coming to Mexico around this time of year, or Chiang Mai around that time of year. So it's really cool.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet your quality of life is much better.
Yeah, exactly. You have no idea. I literally live a lifestyle of a broke college student back in California. And then when I come out here, I'm spending maybe half of my overhead expenses and I'm doing 10 times more. I'm happy, healthy, meeting a lot of cool people, learning a lot about business. So overall, it just makes sense.
Yeah, like it's such a good hack. It's like I feel bad for people who don't take advantage of this. Like the fact that it exists, the fact that there's the internet, the fact that there's other people doing this already, the fact that there's conferences like the Nomad Summit where you can not only learn from people who have done it, but also just meet other attendees who are doing it. Like it's just, I honestly feel bad for anyone who is stuck in a job or stuck living somewhere and unhappy or stressed. Like, and maybe they don't know about this, and this is why I do this podcast. This is why I have the summit. And this is why I'm always so happy when people tell their friends and be like, hey, you should check this out.
Yeah, exactly. I think just knowing that option is out there, why not take advantage of it? I mean, you think about 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, there was no choice of being able to live this lifestyle. You just couldn't. I mean, even for my parents being first generation immigrants, they didn't have that luxury that we do today. So we really just got to take advantage of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I really like it. So I know we kind of like very briefly went over the two conferences, but let's kind of go through it a little bit more in depth. Mm-hmm. So how did you, what made you go to the Invest Like a Boss Summit?
I went to the Invest Like a Boss Summit, number one, because it was right in my backyard. So less than an hour drive for me. But more importantly, the level of speakers and the caliber of the speakers, not only the knowledge, but you're getting some high profile people to go speak there to a small, tight group of less than 100 people. I go to conferences for real estate 3-4 times a year with 10, if not 20,000 people, and I'm paying 10 times the price. And I can't have the luxury to go and talk to those speakers one-on-one afterwards. That just doesn't happen. And for me to go ahead and talk to, these 10 different speakers that, have high track records and backgrounds, it was amazing.
Yeah. So to kind of go over some of the people we have Adam Nash. He was the former president and CEO of Wealthfront, which is the big robo-advisor company. He's a current VP at Dropbox, which I'm sure we all use. Mm-hmm. And then he's also on the board of directors of Acorns, which is the kind of micro investing app where even if you don't have any money to invest, what it does is you tie it to your credit card and it just rounds up every purchase to $1. And that way it just invests those pennies. So you probably don't even notice it, like the difference between, let's say you go to McDonald's, you buy something for like $5.69. It rounds up to $6 and invests those 41 cents for you into like a low cost index fund. So it's kind of like an easy way for even broke people to start investing. And I think that's super cool. And then the fact that, first off, he came and he spoke to, the group, and then he was there just like hanging out, and like you can meet him. He even brought his dad there.
Yeah, that was really cool. Uh-huh.
Like the fact that we were able to like talk to, someone who, I don't know how much Dropbox and Wealthfront is worth, but it's like, I'm assuming like hundreds of millions of dollars. It's like they're big companies.
Exactly. I can't even imagine the opportunity cost of him and his time being there. And it was so generous of him to just kind of take the time out, talk to us, and then even answer some questions one-on-one afterwards.
Yeah, I thought that was dope. And then Meb Faber was there too. So he runs Cambria Investments, which I think has, I want to say, you know what? I don't want to make up the numbers. Let me Google it right now. $1 billion under management.
Gosh, that's insane.
That's the number I had in my mind, and I was like, that sounds like a lot. I don't want to stretch this because, So he manages a fund that has over $1 billion under management. That means people and companies have trusted $1 billion worth of their cash for him to manage and invest. And he came, spoke to us, had beers with us, and answered everybody's questions. And then he even came to Vegas with us to drive Ferraris around the track.
Oh my gosh.
And just hang out.
That's insane.
Yeah. And the coolest thing about Meb was I went to the after party at that, I don't remember the name of that bar, but it was like a super like cool like beachside bar in Manhattan Beach.
Yep.
And I remember it was like the other bosses. There's like, I think in that room, they were, like everybody there was like a multimillionaire. And I remember them saying like, they're ordering drinks, like margaritas and stuff. And they're like, oh yeah, just put it on, just put it on Meb's tab. And, and it was always kind of like, it was kind of just like funny because I think at that point, like, a $20 drink like doesn't matter to them at all. And it was funny because when it was time for Meb to pay his bill, the bartender was like, hey, just to let you know, like a couple people put their drinks on your tab. And instead of, like, if the bartender said that to you, you would say, which guys, how much was it, what drinks?
Yeah, exactly. like
you'd want to know, right? Meb was like, oh, that's fine. He doesn't even look at the bill.
Yeah.
He's like, here you go.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool. Like everybody's so generous and like just, I don't know, like and just the fact that we're able to hang out with them and have drinks with them and just like ask them about their personal life and like about investments. Like you can't get this anywhere else.
Exactly. We were playing foosball with some of the speakers. We were having drinks. We were joking around and really just getting on a personal level, most importantly. So tell me some other conference that you can go ahead and do that. And it's very rare and hard to come by. So
the host of the summit this year was Pure Street, which is a real estate company that does kind of like real estate backed peer-to-peer lending. And first off, they're super cool. I remember going there the day before to set up, and I was hanging out with Brett Crosby, who is the co-founder and the COO. And my cousin Jacob was there, and he was, and he saw us like, and I introduced him. I was like, oh yeah, this is Brett. And Brett's like, hey, what's up? He's wearing his like cap backwards. Yeah. And we were like moving chairs and everything. And Jacob, he's from Taiwan, right? He's like very Asian. He's a real estate agent, very like professional. Mm-hmm. And he was like, why is this guy moving chairs? And he's like, we don't do that. Like, he's like this guy, like he's the director, like, he's the CEO of another $1 billion company.
Yeah. It's up there.
Yeah. They have $1 billion under management now. Mm-hmm. And they did $2 billion in transactions last year. And this guy is hanging out with us, backwards cap, moving chairs and tables. And like, it just kind of shows like the type of like super cool people that for whatever reason, the Invest Like a Boss podcast and the conference attracts. And I think it's because we're really the only podcast and conference out there that isn't about pushing any one like investment. We don't have an agenda. We're like two dudes who invest our own money, and we talk about what we invest in, and we try to find cool stuff that actually works. And I think these guys are probably so sick of the stuffy, white collar investors that like just push whatever their motive is, or just like everything's like through the bank. It's just this is so different.
Yeah, I definitely could appreciate that as well. I mean, I've definitely been to conferences where you're getting pitched and sold on every different instrument, every different asset, and getting offered kickbacks here and there. And it was really refreshing to just get, first of all, real hard evidence of what you guys are doing, what mistakes they've made, what recommendations they have. And then again, most importantly, just getting to know them on a personal level. I mean, I can't really recall any other type of investment summit where you could do that one-on-one.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you guys missed it, next year, if we do it again, we want it to be bigger, right? So like, it might not be as small of a group, but like, we hope it's not going to be that small of a group. We would like it to be more people, but I think the philosophy behind it is always going to be the same. It's always going to be, we want like real people who are not selling, like we want to be the only conference where nobody's pitching anything. That's going to be like a big point of ours. It's like, there's no hard selling. There's no run to the back to, buy something for a limited time. And also we want people to be able to ask questions and like, really kind of get that help. And the same thing for the Nomad Summit. That's been our philosophy now. We've done 7 events. And actually a common question that we still get is, if I come to this conference, like, is there, like, am I just going to get sold? Like, is it just going to be like a pitch fest? And I'm like, we have all of our past talks on YouTube for free. Like, you can watch them. There's no selling. Like, one of our rules is there's no selling on stage. Every speaker is allowed to share like their link on the very last slide and talk about it for no more than 30 seconds. That's it. And it's our philosophy as well to like introduce what really works. And if they happen to have a course, or they happen to have a software product, or or like a SaaS product, whatever it is, like, and it's something that they use and is good, like, sure, they can mention it, but like, we don't pick speakers based on like how much money we can make from them. Like we really want to like introduce people to things that actually work.
Yeah, I think what's really cool about it for most people kind of getting into it or first time attending, they can figure out what business model they can relate to the most. And then afterwards connect with that speaker one-on-one, hang out with them and really pick their brain on best practices, how they got started, what things they wish they would have known when they started. And then for me, this was my third summit. So it's more on the lines of, okay, let me figure out what the best nuggets are from every speaker and how can I implement some of these best practices into my own business. And then on top of that, you get all the cool networking and kind of getting to see old friends from previous conferences. And so it's a really good time overall.
That was actually one of my favorite things about this one in particular is how many people I recognized from previous events. Like now, I think that was our 6th conference. And in the beginning, like the first couple of years, you would see some people like that are repeats. And then this year, I swear it was like 20% of the people there had been to like 2 or 3 like summits in the past.
Yeah, it was a good amount. You would think that, most of the digital nomads that are hitting their stride and have made it don't have time for something like this. But it's almost the opposite where this is the one excuse to all fly out together to the same place and kind of hang out for 2, 3, even 4 weeks and, really catch up with some friends that you rarely get to see in your neck of the woods because some people have different favorite places that they like to be based out in the world.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I think it's super cool that a lot of people who have made it, like, just want to give back and help people out. Like, there's so many people who are successful. I just saw them, like, helping people out that are just starting, Like, and even with the workshops, there's, like, people, like, went super in depth. Like, even, like, last minute, we put together another workshop with CJ. And because he was originally supposed to be there. And then he didn't respond to me in time and we had to book someone else. And then he was like, oh man, I really wanted to like help people out and do this. So then we figured out a way where he was just able to do it at Selena after the conference. And it was like a ton of people, like 30 people in there, 40 people. And they like, from what everyone said, they're like, man, like I learned so much just from that. Like, it's just like people want to give back.
Exactly. I think a few people that were supposed to go home or fly home after the Cancun week ended up going down to Playa just to see CJ and RJ's workshop. So, I always get a cool couple nuggets from their demonstration and panel. And I hope, it sounded like a real good feedback from everyone that was there.
Yeah, it's dope. And all the speakers were like killing it too. Like one of the reasons why we only have normally like 7 keynote speakers and we honestly try to have 6 only is because that allows me to really curate the best 6 and make sure their talks are super on point, like super valuable. Because if people are going to sit through a longer talk, like a 40-minute talk, I want it to be really valuable and I want it to apply to everyone. I want every single person to be able to learn from it, even if they didn't think that was their niche or like that's their business. And the problem with like the way we do it is it doesn't allow, like it'd be easier if we just said like, oh, whoever wants to speak, I'll just like very lightly vet them and just have like, we have 30 speakers over 3 days, but there's no way you can vet 30 speakers. Like even if I had a team of people just vetting them, you know how hard it is to find 30 really quality talks and then train all of them, like we have them rehearse and have them be all like that good on point. It's really hard. So anytime I've ever seen a conference that had 30 speakers, usually 24 of them were crap. And there was maybe 5 really good ones or 3 really good ones. Our goal is just to give you just the real good ones.
Mm-hmm. And it's pretty diverse too, where typically I'll find 1 or 2 that I'm really interested in. But because you go all day and you attend every single panel, you get some of the best advice and best nuggets out of the ones that you would least expect. And then so it's that important to kind of just go through the whole thing. And it's only 6, so it's not 30. And you could sit through all of them and really be engaged.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like that's a big reason also why we have just one main room instead of having like 2 like separate rooms and having, because a lot of conferences they'll say, okay, you can either listen to this talk or this talk. And the problem is a lot of times people either want to listen to both or they don't want to listen to any. And then what ends up happening is you end up missing really good stuff. I'm a big believer that the things that we need the most to grow in life and our business are probably things that are outside of our normal like field or places we're looking already. It's like every single guy that just goes to the gym and lifts weights and does nothing else would benefit a lot from, probably going for a run like once a week, or doing yoga once a week. While people who just run and never lift weights would probably benefit from lifting some weights. And same with people who are super flexible and they just do yoga every day. They would probably also benefit from doing some sprints or lifting some weights once in a while. But that's not where they're looking. They're looking for, like, a runner is just going to look at running magazines. The person who loves yoga is just going to be hanging out with other yogis. But to really learn and grow, like, we have to kind of look at the other points of view and be like, oh man, that person has something to teach me, or I should be doing that with my business.
Some of the best advice will come from that kind of cross-training mentality where you kind of pick someone's brain that's in a totally different industry, and some of their best practice might give you a light bulb moment to try in your business. So I agree with that as well. Yeah,
like some of our speakers that we have Jeffrey Marr, whose business has nothing to do with anything probably any of us do, right? He created a company that does like animation videos for other companies, like explainer videos. And you might look at that and be like, how would that help me at all? But when you go through his talk, you're like, man, this guy's a freaking genius. Like, and like, I remember one big key takeaway was when he was going through this, he was basically a freelancer and he was learning how to do, use the, these like editing softwares. And at a point, people wanted Adobe After Effects. And he's like, oh man, this is going to take me like 2 years to learn how to do this. Should I spend the next, 6 months or 2 years learning and trying to master After Effects and continue to be a freelancer? Or is this my time to just hire someone who already knows After Effects and really be a business owner? And like that applies to everyone. Like no matter what business or skill you're in, you're going to hit that roadblock one day, that fork in the road. And if you had like heard the backstory of the talk and where it led to, you'll know next time like you're at a fork in the road, it's probably a good question to ask yourself, like, do I want to be a business owner or do I want to be an employee?
That Cash Flow Quadrants book is so important in terms of getting your mindset from the employee to even the freelancer to eventually become the investor or business owner, because a lot of different successful people that I've met own different companies that they weren't formally trained in or don't even specialize in themselves. I met someone with a programming company where this guy was a sales guy and basically just connected the dots of, hey, let me find clients and let me outsource it to these experts. So being able to kind of make that pivot is extremely important when it comes to scaling your business.
Yeah, I definitely agreed. And also bringing in like different types of marketing. Like Chris Tan talked about using like messenger bots to, instead of email lists. And a lot of people don't never even thought about doing that. Like they didn't think that their business would need it, but there were so many benefits of that. And then Ben Hughes from Blinkist, which is another huge company, it was really cool where instead of having a freelancer or a remote worker give a talk about, how to be a good remote worker, we actually had someone who runs the team as a remote talking about how to manage a team remotely. Because think about it. It's good to be a remote worker. It's better to be the leader and still be able to be remote and have a whole team under you.
He even shared a lot of the pros and cons of managing a remote team, because it's not all fun and games when it comes to managing a remote team. There are some downsides where face-to-face meetings can communicate effectively and at a much faster speed of trust versus virtually. And so he had a good section where even something as simple as emails, to kind of read it twice, think about it, because even if you have like a kind of calm and nonchalant email, it could be interpreted the opposite, maybe even aggressive to some people.
Yeah, and actually that was a really good point where he said that it's always going to be one step difference. So if it's a neutral email, it'll generally be seen as negative. If it's upbeat, it'll be seen as neutral. So you always kind of have to have it like as kind as possible. Unless you are trying to piss the person off. And one of my favorite talks that kicked it off was Sergio Sala, because he is a local Mexican entrepreneur who has, figured it out really. And there's so many people in Mexico who make, a couple $100 an hour, like a month. I think the average salary is still way less than $700, even if you work for a company, even if you're living in like big city, like Mexico City or Playa del Carmen. And the fact that he went, from either being, just like poor, or in the best case scenario, making $700 a month, to now making $70,000 a year as an entrepreneur, like while being raised in Mexico and in a small town in Tabasco, which most people never heard of besides the sauce. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that he's done that and he's able to share kind of the journey, like, and us being in Mexico, like that was really cool.
It was awesome. We were actually walking to lunch one of the days and some girl walked up to us and was like, Sergio, is that you? And then kind of said hello. So that was awesome. You could kind of see the impact that he's making to even the locals out here.
Yeah. And like, actually that same thing happened too. I was walking to my lunch and someone was like, hey, you Sergio. That's dope. I really like it. Mm-hmm. And then we had all the workshops. We had Joanne, who talked about building strong business mindset. Mike LaRosa, who talked about credit card and rewards hacking for travel. Chris Tan went deeper into actually how to build the messenger bot. And then we had Crystal Pino, who talked about tax savings for digital nomads. And what was really cool is a few people told me, they're like, man, like this trip paid for itself just because of this workshop we went to.
Yeah, there was definitely some good nuggets in the workshops. And what was cool with Mike is we ended up being in the same industry. So that was pretty awesome. And just learning how the travel hacking whole game works is fascinating upon itself. But every single talk and every single panel was super interesting.
Yeah. And so the reason why we actually started introducing the workshops was because I didn't want to have more talks on the main day because it's a long day. And then if we had a second main day, first off, I think it would be really long. But second, the ticket prices will literally double because the biggest cost we have is renting the convention center and then feeding everybody that day. We always provide lunch as like a buffet lunch. First, it just saves time because everyone can just go and eat. But also it's a networking thing where everyone can sit together, like talk about the what they've learned so far. And, we have coffee, between all the sessions and snacks and water, just because it's kind of vital if you're going to be at a conference. Mm-hmm. So these are things we can't skip on. And even though, like compared to most conferences, even if we charged $500, it'd still be really cheap. But we really wanted to be available for everyone, even who are just starting out. And a lot of people who are living in places like Mexico or in Chiang Mai are kind of on a budget. So like our goal is to always have tickets be less than $300.
It's at a pretty good price point where most people will have skin in the game. So they kind of block out that date, make some flight plans, but also not small enough where you kind of brush it off like a few days before. So it's kind of a good kind of point. I mean, I've been to a lot of real estate conferences where they're 500 to 1,000. And so, I mean, it's a really good deal. Highly recommend it to people just kind of checking out the scene, especially.
Yeah. And like, we survey people like afterwards and we always ask, was it a great value? Was it an okay value? Or was it a bad value? And every year, I think it's something like 85 or 90% of people, or maybe more, I don't remember the exact numbers. They're like, it was great value, or at least like it was good value. And there's always like literally 2 people out of every conference out of a couple hundred, like 400 people or 200 people that didn't like it. And unfortunately, we can't make everyone happy. I wish we can just like weed them out so they don't waste their time coming in the first place. But in general, it's people who either think that they already know everything, or looking for some kind of like magic formula, or like super cynical that like nothing works. I remember like one person was like, yeah, everybody there was, was too, I forgot the word he used. But he basically like, yeah, everyone there says everything works and I don't believe them. And I'm like, why don't you talk to other like people sitting next to you? Like not even the speakers, the organizers, just talk to the other attendees and be like, hey, what business do you do? Because they have nothing to sell you, and there's so many successful people in the audience. And that's kind of the big, probably the best part of these live conferences isn't just the speakers. It's literally the other attendees you'll meet.
Yeah, I would say a lot of people would compare it to, let's say, worst case scenario. They're like, oh, you're just paying for your friends for a network, or, they're not giving you the step-by-step on how to do everything exact, or they don't have the time to give out any handouts to kind of show you the direct way. It's kind of like, hey, we're showing you, how to do these things, but it's also up to you to execute. There's so many different ideas out there, and most of these speakers are showing the bare bones kind of spark notes of it. It's up to you to do further research. It's up to you to talk one-on-one to that speaker and do the homework when you get back home. So it's not like we're going to spoon feed you. And so that's my biggest thing and the biggest takeaway that I get from a lot of speakers and mostly attendees. I get a lot of value from the most low-key people that aren't a speaker, that have no YouTube channel, no Instagram, no Facebook, and they're the most low-key with the best advice, best business experiences, best business practices. And those are the most open to be like, hey, these are what my downfalls and pitfalls were. And I wish I would have known some of these things. And now you don't have to make these mistakes.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And like the fact that, you know, you're an attendee, like you have nothing to sell.
Exactly.
You know? And like, you know, it really comes from the heart, like when you just speak to other people, like, and you know, for sure, you can look them in the eye, you can get to know them, you know, and you're like, this is just a normal dude. And it's funny because it seems online like all the successful people have YouTube channels and books and courses. Those are just the people that have time to post about it and have incentive to post about it. There's way more people who are successful that never post anything, that don't even have like accounts. You know, maybe they have a personal like Instagram or Facebook, but like most of them, like 99% of people don't have a course, don't have a YouTube channel, but they're still successful.
Most people will probably think, oh, why is this guy so gung-ho about the Nomad Summit and, you know, agreeing with all this stuff? But it's like just a year ago, I was, you know, 180 difference of where I was at. So, you know, it's kind of like being at the third summit. It's almost crazy to see how far, not only myself, but the other people that we all met a year ago in Vegas, of how far we've come in 1 year. So if you're kind of wondering, oh, why is this guy agreeing with everything? Why is this guy talking it up? It's like, you know, for me, my priority is let me take care of myself. Let me take care of my family. And once I have those two done, let me kind of spread the word, because it's almost like, you know, I want everyone to have that option. It's like what we were talking about earlier. If everyone knew this was out there and this was all possible, like that's what I want as well. It's just more of my friends to know and everyone else in my industry that it's all possible. And just, you know, start off by watching the videos for a year or two, and then muster up the energy to go to a local Nomad Summit. So kind of go through the motions and, you know, put your mind to it, and it could happen. Yeah,
that's really cool advice. And actually, the funny thing about what you said about like people saying like you're paying to meet friends, I don't think of it as paying to meet friends, but I would pay to filter out the people who are either too cheap or have such a scarcity mindset where they wouldn't be willing to pay $150 to go to something that's organized, that feeds you, that like has, you know, all these events like around it. Like the fact is, when you go to a paid event, whether it's $150 or a $5,000 event like I went to with Tony Robbins, it really filters out the people who have like the scarcity mentality. They're like, nothing works, everything, you know, everything's a scam, nothing, you know, like it's all BS, or even just like you can't do it, like, or like life, you know, life sucks, you know, like that really kind of negative people. There are so many of them, not only in the world, but like especially online, and and even at free events. Like it just everyone can be there. So like you kind of have a random mix of people. But when someone invests money to actually go to a conference, especially if they're flying there, they're staying at the hotel, like it ends up being like a decent amount of money. And the fact that they're willing to invest, you know, $500 or $1,000 into themselves, like that's normally the type of people who are optimistic, hardworking, and they're probably either already or going to be successful.
If you're willing to put skin in the game and continue your personal growth and education, I'm sure you're already doing it with your own business. I'm sure you're probably making those profits and reinvesting back in your company. And those are the type of people that are coming to these conferences. No internet troll is going to pay a few $100 or $1,000 to just go talk a bunch of crap on all of these speakers and in person. You know, these are probably the brightest minds that are like, hey, I'm going to invest in myself and I'm going to make the best out of this networking and these panels and go out of my way to reach out to these speakers one-on-one.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's not just the Nomad Summit. Like, it's not just the Invest Like a Boss Summit. It's literally whatever is in your field that you would benefit from. So if you're in real estate and you're like, you know what, I need to figure out how to, you know, acquire more properties, go do a conference that just focuses on that. You know, like if you're like if you want to, you know, like if you want to expand your network for whatever business you're in, find something that's very specific to that and spend the money to go. And that's why people spend, you know, $500 or $1,000 to go to real estate conferences, is because not only they're going to learn something, but they're also going to meet like people who could potentially make them tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
One deal will make up for all the money you've spent for that conference and your accommodations and that whole trip. And just don't be afraid to just go up to people that you admire or kind of want to pick their brain. Obviously, don't come up to them with no background of what they do or what the industry does. Obviously, come prepared, do your homework, and ask these good questions to, show them that, hey, you're really interested, you've done your research, and you just need to kind of connect the dots a little bit better. And if I was that panel speaker, I'd be like, hey, this guy did his homework, took the time and energy. I kind of see something in myself from this person, maybe back when I started. So that's kind of what I would hope would happen.
Yeah, definitely. And another kind of big networking trick is don't come with a stack of business cards and just like spam people with it. Nobody wants your card. Like seriously, nobody wants your card, especially if you're just going to hand it out like it's, like pieces of paper. What I like about the way that we do the conference is we have, the whole day, the networking, the pre-registration parties, and then all the after events. And we do that on purpose so people can get to know each other naturally. Like nobody was handing out business cards at the Nomad Summit or even Invest Like a Boss. Like people were just getting to know each other, over drinks, over lunch, over coffee. We had like a casual beach day, in Vegas. We had that Vegas trip and it wasn't even it's not even expensive. I mean, like literally we had if even in Vegas, there was the option to take the bus to Vegas. We left enough time. We were like, if you leave in the morning, we can meet here at this time. We're at the Cosmo. Just don't drink. It's not going to cost you anything, and then we went to go drive Ferraris, which sounds expensive, but literally the lowest package they had was $70, where you can take a Porsche out and you can hang out there the whole day. To pay $70 to be around that many cool exotic cars for the whole day with all these multi-millionaire investors running, managing billions of dollars. You can't find a way to get $70 to do that. That's
honestly where the real relationships are formed and kind of bonded, is through those really lifetime experiences like that too.
Yeah. And then here in Playa del Carmen, the fact that you're sitting next to people on a bus for an hour going from Cancun to Playa del Carmen, or for the side trips, going to Chichen Itza, you're sitting on the bus for an hour and 40 minutes. And then you're hanging out with people on these same tours, having meals together. We're going on a scuba diving boat together. If you were just a normal, cool person, you don't even have to be super outgoing. You can just be a normal person. You'll get to know pretty much everyone there. And especially if you stay the whole week or 2 weeks after.
Actually, thinking about it, I think the tough part about a lot of conferences in general is that there's so many people, and it's really hard to make memorable relationships at that event. So you might maybe meet 5 or 10 people and really, talk business or at each other on LinkedIn or what have you. But a lot of the real bonding and experiences come from maybe waiting in line for lunch, grabbing a coffee, kind of, running into each other, checking into the hotel, and especially at those extracurricular activities where there's an hour of downtime where you grab an ice cream at some random city, or scuba diving, or all of these different activities where it's hey, a year ago we met at this, remember? And it's so memorable, and that's a real bonding experience.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I hope you guys got a lot of takeaways, not just for, our conferences or my conferences, even though I would like everyone to come to the next Nomad Summit. If we do another Invest Like a Boss Summit, I would love for you guys to go. But these are tips and tricks that you can take away really for anything in your life, any conference you go to, any seminar you go to, or even just networking in general. So, Rainier, thanks so much for coming on and doing this recap. Thanks for coming out to the Nomad Summit for 3 years in a row now. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been really cool and always a good time hanging out with everyone.
Cool. I hope to see all of you guys in the next one. If people want to get in touch, are you on Instagram, on social media or anything?
It's Rainier Nanquil. So I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Feel free to shoot me a DM anytime.
Okay, cool. So hasta luego, guys. Hope to see you at the next Nomad Summit. The next one is going to be in Chiang Mai, Thailand, the weekend of January is, I think, 17th to the 21st in Chiang Mai. That's our big event. We're going to have about 400 plus digital nomads there and location-independent entrepreneurs from all around the world. Right now, pre-sale tickets are on sale before we announce all the speakers and get all the final details together. So prices right now are 50% off. So you can get tickets for much, much cheaper than if you wait a few months for us to announce everything. But we've done this now. This is going to be our 7th one. They've all been good. So we promise you this one's going to be great as well. So get those if you want to save some money, make your plans to go out to Thailand. And my suggestion is to at least come a few days before, just kind of chill out, get settled in, get over jet lag. If you want, just come all of like November, December, January, just because it's a great time to be there anyways and network. But definitely stay at least 1 or 2 weeks afterwards so you can do all the activities, hang out with each other, and get to know each other. So adios, amigos. See you at the next conference.
Hasta luego.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus, How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.